And Kath, I'd like if you could address, is one of the discussion points today is that a lot of people saying in British TV at the moment, what can we learn from Scandinavian drama? Many people think that Broadchurch learned quite a lot from The Killing in structure and pacing and so on. Having worked on Murder, which was, as we say, a collaboration between those two cultures, could you give us your reflections on that?
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure, to be honest with you. I think that one of the things I liked a lot when we were looking for a director for Murder was something to do with pace of storytelling, actually, and the composure that I thought was in the direction of the first 3 episodes of The Killing. I thought it was unusual if you put it beside a lot of British television, which is obsessed with an idea of pace and the cut, and is often told a lot in dialogue rather than picture. I thought those were the significant differences, actually, if there are any. And I knew that we needed something very composed and very clean for Murder, and something that focused completely on performance and had a restraint about it as well. I think sometimes in a British tone there can be there's either a melodrama or a farce, actually. And I was just thinking about when you were talking about the difference. I think what's so interesting about Borgen, or so moving about Borgen, is that there's an idealism at its core, that if you look at something like A Very British Coup that Alan Plater made, I don't know how many years ago, it's someone who does think there's the capacity to turn something round. And I love In the Thick of It here as well, for a completely different reason, because I also think there's a truth there and an understanding of a sort of incompetence that one feels is probably at work at Westminster. So but I think it was mainly the pace of storytelling and the confidence in the story to let the audience into the story at the story's pace. I think we pushed too hard and too quick.
And Kath, I think Very British Coup, excuse me, just been remade by Channel 4 with, I think, your writer from The Murder, Robert Jones.
Absolutely, yeah. But I think that one of the problems when we do what we think is serious drama here, sometimes I think we lose humour. It was interesting watching that episode and A Life, and I think there's an idea of, I think there's also, we go to very familiar casting, and I suppose this cast are very familiar to a Danish audience, but I think for me, one of the things I like about watching stuff from other countries or good work is I don't get a confusion between actor and character, and I don't see the same actors again and again. And I think in Secret State they got a bit sort of stymied by an idea that it was an important drama, and I don't think you feel that in Borgen. I think it feels much more alive.
Adam, could you just talk about that? Because Kath has raised, inevitably, a lot of people in this country, when they watch a British drama, they say, oh, it's the same old people again. But the cast of Borgen and The Killing are entirely fresh to us, but would that be true for an audience, for a Danish audience?
Yes and no. I think we have developed kind of a general rule in DR anyway, that we need new faces in every single series. That's very important in the cast. But then again, also a few well-known faces. So it's a mix, and that's quite important. I'll just say one thing also. Lars is a new face, and nobody heard of him. He's a very well-known actor. No. No, I'll just say one thing, because you talked about, and you recognized, and I was very happy about that there is actually a kind of a positive core in the storytelling of Borgen, and that was actually one of the main ideas for the show, because we looked at a lot of political drama before we did eventually start writing Borgen, and a lot of stories around politics, in feature film anyway, were built around the same structure as All the President's Men, that kind of politicians were evil people, and it was up to the conscientious journalist to expose them and get them in jail. And we didn't want to tell that story, because after having talked to quite a number of politicians, they weren't idiots, all of them, actually. Some of them actually wanted to change the world in order to become prime minister. But anyway, no, but they actually they wanted to. So we I know this might sound idealistic in a nauseating way, but we actually wanted to pay tribute to democracy for all its for what's good about it, and also what's terrible about it. but there should be a positive note in every chord in the show, and we really try to do that.
Ooh, a lot of politicians in the audience, obviously, members of parliament. Lars, could I ask you, did you talk to real politicians?
No. No. I just want to say one thing. Adam, you said a very good thing in the very beginning. The headline of this series is, and then you have to translate it, En hyldest til demokratiet.
Tribute to democracy.
Oh, nice. That's the most important thing.
Yeah. So,
so what do you ask me?
I wondered whether, in working on the part, whether you'd spoken to politicians or what level of research you'd done.
No, that was not necessary. I have a good imagination, so and the script was really good. It was not necessary, so no, I didn't.
And could I ask our journalist to talk about the reception there, because we know about the reception here, which is on a small channel, 1 million viewers, huge discussion in newspapers among what we call opinion formers. But what was the reception there of the series?
In Denmark, you mean?
Yeah.
Well, I'm based here in London, so.
But I expect you to read the Danish papers.
Yes, I
though.
do.
Yeah,
It's actually quite funny because, especially with the latest series, there has been quite some severe criticism, and it's almost like we have this thing in Denmark that if people do too well, if something is too popular, we kind of don't really like it that much.
I think all countries have that, don't
Yes.
they say, yeah.
So it's been really sort of strange to be on this side where, Borgen could do nothing wrong whatsoever. and everything Danish was so wonderful, or is so wonderful. I mean, you've seen several papers having sort of Danish supplements and Danish courses teaching people to say, do you want to come to my place and play with Lego in Danish? And so the fascination here is probably more exotic, whereas in Denmark we kind of know what we're talking about. And it was really funny. I was noticing as we were sitting here and watching the episode that Danish people, they kind of chuckle a little bit at different places in the series, and other people may be laughing in the room, British people, because there are some subtleties that are completely Danish that you probably don't get, but you still get the series and what it's all about.
Adam.
Yeah, can I just add one thing, because it was quite funny. The paper that Lone writes for, Politiken, also a paper I really love. I've been working for Politiken for almost all my life, writing about food. Really strange, but anyway. But they really bashed the series from the beginning. And then they did a survey amongst their readers, and they said that was their favorite show. That was Borgen. And then all of a sudden, the kind of editorial, it changed. All of a sudden, they liked the series.
Absolutely.
Papers are desperate.
If you wonder why there are so many panelists, Adam is also one of the great chefs, apparently, in Norway, and there's a lunch afterwards where
Denmark.
I think you... Denmark, yeah. Oh, sorry. Sorry, I knew I was going to do that. Denmark.
Can I do my Norwegian accent now?
Yeah, go on, do it. I did warn the panelists that it's going to be like being at breakfast in a very large family, and some people won't get anything at all. But I just want to nominate 3 people, Adam, Paula, and also Ingolf. If you could, because in Britain, making political drama is quite difficult. There are guidelines about what you can say about political parties. It has to be balanced. Indeed, Paula will probably talk about this, but in most recent British political dramas, the party hasn't even been specified which party they belong to. How much pressure is there editorially in making something like Borgen?
There is in Denmark very big political pressure. You will have to keep very cold, and I can tell you that the most thrilling I have ever experienced was the difference in between the first 20 episodes, where the writers' team are mirroring, so to say, the parliament as it is. And everybody in Denmark will know, even if they have other names, this is that and that, she is her in her, and he is her, and so on, because they also changed the sex of the politicians. But everybody knew who it was and what was the talk about, because it was mirroring and to secure identification. And then he suddenly came up, Adam, with an idea to the next 10 episodes in part 3, which you haven't seen. It has not been aired, I've heard. And I can tell you that was thrilling, because for the first time we were not mirroring something which we knew. We were doing politics on screen, on the platform of television fiction in Danish Broadcasting Corporation, which is a public service broadcaster. And that was thrilling, because we thought, now we are ourselves coming up with an ideology, with what we think is needed and what would be good and what would be the troubles and the problems. And there was somehow a crash. I'll make that very brief. There is a very right wing party, and I can tell you that what you have seen now in 16, where this politician goes from a quarter in Copenhagen, Østerbro, to Nørrebro, and where it is claimed from some of the journalists that he goes there just to get in trouble and to make some propaganda for himself. The politician from that party, which is a woman, she went to Nørrebro, and she did obviously what was claimed here, and she had to hide in a bank, and she did. So I mean, so there is discussion, and the board of the broadcaster are politicians. They are chosen by the political parties, and some from this right-wing party are very harsh, I can tell you.
Adam, could you say something about those pressures?
Yes, well, I think we had some very, very important discussions with our bosses at DR, Danish Broadcasting, before we actually started the writing process. And we kind of agreed on that we should change all the party names, and we should not address any historical event in Denmark that was not at least 30 years old. We can make kind of a rule around that, which was quite important. We were attacked, because that's quite a funny situation also. Ingolf almost touched it. DR, Danish Broadcasting Company, they have a reputation for being a bit socialist. So the right-wing parties, they detest that channel, and they make a point of just to criticize them, criticize the institution. And we were attacked a year before we aired the first episode of Borgen. We were attacked from the extreme right party that this would be just another communist show. So they were really at us, and that's actually the only time, the singular time that we've actually had a scene that went all the way up to the general manager of DR Broadcasting Corporation. That was the way we introduced the guy you just saw in episode 16, the right-wing politician. He is introduced in the first episode, and the first thing we see is his shoes. Now, they are very ugly shoes. And all of a sudden, DR Broadcasting, they got a bit nervous. Could we show a right-wing politician with ugly shoes? And that went all the way up to the general manager's office, and they sat there watching his ugly shoes and said, my God, they are really ugly, aren't they? And then the directors...
Sorry, in fact, you saw the shoes because he put them onto his disc.
Exactly, exactly. And then the directors, actually, that was really beautiful, they stood up and they said, if you take out those ugly shoes, you will be violating our rights to this. And it really became a great political standoff. And then we kept the shoes, and they kept quiet ever since. which is a great thing. So that was the only episode, the only time we've actually been discussing and almost they've been editing the show. After that episode, they didn't touch the show.